I don't know. There are so many different things I'd like people to like me for. But I think being an individual, being sincere and being frank with other people are the most important things.
Well, what about that?
I'm in shock, actually. I look at myself and it's as if you were looking at your daughter. How old's your daughter?
Oh, she's in her 20s.
Supposing she walked in the room at 8 and you knew she was 20 but she suddenly came in at 8. You can look at photographs and you can look at them doing things like home movies. When they actually see what they are like and they walk in the room at you, you'd be sort of totally disorientated.
But do you recognise him, the young man who went into that studio?
I don't. It's extraordinary. I can't relate to it at all.
Can you remember what John Freeman put you through, and was it a grim experience?
No, it wasn't a grim experience. It was, I think people expected it to be a grim experience because of the reputation of the programme, and Gilbert Harding had just been on, and when it was announced I was doing it, I remember at Lime Grove when we were doing it, there were like 50 press in the green room watching the show and sort of patted me on the back as if I was going in for a heart operation. You know, good luck. And when I came out there, like, as if I'd won an Oscar. You know, it was almost like relief ran through the press that I hadn't got massacred. But John Freeman never seemed to me, when I watched the programme, that he was out to massacre people. It was an opportunity to be totally whatever, you know, to be yourself. He wasn't going to push you into a... If you wanted to be anything other than yourself, you were in danger of being exposed. But, well, I was 20, I didn't give a damn about anybody. I just wanted to be what I was.
Well, that was one of your great qualities. What do you feel about the things that you said now? You said that you cared about money and security, and indeed you've gone on to make a great deal of money. You're a financial wizard. And do you think you fulfilled the ambitions that you had then in your own head and heart?
I think probably. I mean, looking at him saying he wanted to be an individual and things like that, and everybody should be an individual, I think that still is I try and tell my daughter that. So probably, yeah, I'm probably not far off that person. It's just that I don't relate to it. It's so funny to be exposed to it.
The programme was famous for this severe interrogation. What was your relationship with John Freeman like?
During the programme? It was one of great respect that I had for him because I loved his programme. It was like I couldn't have done better if I'd met Elvis Presley or Marlon Brando. I was meeting John Freeman. If I had not done the programme, if he'd let me just go and talk to him, I would have been happy. But to actually do the programme was a fantastic thing to be involved in. It was much more important than any interview could ever be now because it was the only ones. And John, look at the people he had on. And I was one of them. I mean, it was an incredible thing to do.
It was an even greater honour in those days because a pop star was regarded as rather a scruffy individual.
Yeah.
Indeed, there were no groups. The whole movement hadn't got going. No. So you were really out there on your own.
Well, we were treated really as freaks, in a sense, that this thing will come and go within 5 minutes, and you know there was no subculture to support it.
But what was interesting too was that you say the press and the public sort of expected you to be stripped bare and behave badly. You do, in fact, behave with enormous respect, don't you? You were quite a conventional pop star, do you think?
I was with John because it was my hero. I mean, it was of all the TV programmes that I would ever watch, that would have been the one.
What difference did it make to your image after the show?
Oh, I mean, I'm still feeling the effects of it now. I'm sandwiched, I think, between Evelyn Waugh and Martin Luther King. You know, and that has to have an enormous impact throughout the whole of your life. I think of all the things I've done, with perhaps the exception of What Do You Want If You Don't Want Money, the first record I ever recorded, this programme has had the most significant effect on my whole life in terms of career. Well, no question about it. There's no question.
Yeah. Yes. How hard do you work now? I mean, when did you last have a week off?
Well, it wasn't so long ago, actually. I went to Spain for 6 days. Maybe 10 weeks ago.
And is that the only holiday you've had this year?
Apart from a few odd days, yeah.
Now, this does seem a very heavy work cycle, because I think you've only made 7 discs, including your long playing, haven't you?
Yeah, well, 6 successful records, an LP, and 3 unsuccessful.
All right, well, I didn't know about the unsuccessful ones, but 7
I keep them very quiet.
All right. But now, is that really is a... what takes up all this time? It can't be making 7 records.
Oh, no, making of a record doesn't take up much time. It takes maybe a few hours in the recording studio to cut a disc. But traveling takes up a lot of the time.
Well, now, you told me you like this life. Do you like that, for instance? Do you like travel?
I don't like the traveling so much, no.
Do you like living in hotels?
No, I don't like it.
Do you find that you're recognized wherever you go in hotels?
Fortunately, yeah.
Fortunately?
Well, when people stop recognizing me, I should start to worry.
All right. Now, tell me a bit about this fan club that you have 4 people to run. Is it a question of writing letters, sending out autograph photographs? What do you do in the fan club?
Well, the main function of the fan club is to familiarize the fans with what I'm doing. And every month they send out a newsletter. And the girl, Angela, she gets the fans together. She organizes coach trips. If they ask for photographs, she gives them photographs. And all sorts of things.
How many letters do you get each week?
Well, I don't know. I never asked Angela that.
Do you never answer the letters?
A few. When I get them at the theatre, I answer some myself.
Yes.
But it'd be impossible to answer all of them.
How many times do you have to sign your autograph in a week? Do you know?
Well, I counted one week, and I kept it up for 3 days, and it was over 700. So I gave it up then.
Yes, I see. You said just now, I think, that you like being recognized, but nevertheless, this must limit your life very much.
Yes, well, it has limited it. Since I became lucky with the records, such as I don't go to dance halls now. Cinemas I don't go to.
Can you take a girl out for an evening, for instance?
Well, it depends where I take her. If I take her to dinner somewhere, in a quiet restaurant, that's okay. We go for a drive in the car, that's okay. But apart from that, we don't go too far.
Do you make friends among your fans?
A few of them, but the trouble with that is I'm never at one place long enough to get familiar with them. So it's very difficult.
So friends are either old friends or showbiz friends, but they're not usually picked up from among your fans?
No, I have a very limited amount of friends.
Would you like to marry?
Eventually, yeah.
But not yet?
No.
Is that because your manager won't let you?
Well, I don't have any of those sort of clauses in my contract, you see.
It is, however, supposed to be very bad for a pop singer to be married, isn't it?
So I'm told, yeah.
But you don't want to, in any case, yet a while?
Well, I don't feel prepared for marriage just yet.
Have you thought, do you think of an ideal age that you'd like to marry at?
Maybe 30. Seems to be a good age to get married. I don't know. You can't tell about these things, can you?
You wait. You'll find out.
You know, it happens all of a sudden.
Yes.
That's it.
Let me ask you a bit about the finances of this big business and all the people it employs. Now, I don't know what you earn. It's said about you quite often that you earn about £1,000 a week, and as you don't deny that, I suppose that's perhaps about true.
Yes, it is true to a certain extent. It's difficult to average out what one earns in a week because of records. You get a royalty on them.
Yes.
And you get that in a lump sum. For a film, you get that in a lump sum. So it's very difficult.
Right. But still, if we divided a year's earnings by 52, I dare say it would come to something like £1,000 a week.
I should think so, yeah.
Good. Well, now, do you have professional advice as to what you do with that?
Well, I have. I've been in the business now for just over a year. And I've taken advice from my manager and her business associates. And their advice is to keep it. I've been saving for the past year and intend to do so for another 6 or 8 months.
Does that mean, when you say saving, I don't want to be impertinent about this, but does that mean you're not investing it, you're just literally saving it in the bank, or does it mean you're putting it out into investment?
Well, at the moment I'm not investing because come the time next summer, that'll be the time when I start to invest.
I see.
Then I should buy the best brains possible. Then.
To advise you how to do it, yes.
Yes.
Now, what do you think you're saving for? Because you like luxurious things, I think. In fact, you said you did just now. What are you saving for?
security of old age for my family. That's it.
Yes. What about this luxury that you enjoy just from day to day? What form does it take?
Well, the greatest luxury for me is having a car. That's been fantastic for me.
An expensive car?
Fairly expensive, yes. About £2,700.
The newspaper cuttings say that you like classical music. Now, is that just a story or is it true?
Well, you see, I always take interviews myself, and I never give out any press releases. So most of it, of what you read in the newspapers, is true, if not just slightly exaggerated. But I do enjoy classical music.
What particular composer?
Sibelius and Dvorak I enjoy very much. Tchaikovsky I like.
Have you ever had any musical lessons?
Never.
Can you read music?
No.
But you do play an instrument? Well,
if you can call it that, a little bit. Yeah, not too much. I wouldn't call it play.
Do you worry about what you look like to be sort of properly dressed for the right occasion?
Oh, yeah. Always. I always try to dress for the occasion.
So you do? I mean, you do take a bit of care about this?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been present on some occasion when you really felt out of place because you were in the wrong clothes?
Well, I have, actually, yeah.
Tell me, go on.
I went to the Dorchester for a luncheon, the Variety Club luncheon. And I had to go to rehearse in the morning because I was singing a song there. And I went in casual jacket and a casual shirt.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd have plenty of time to go home, put a tie on. And before I knew it, the luncheon had started. And I was the only one there without a tie, out of I don't know how many, hundreds of people. So that was a bit embarrassing.
It was probably very popular, in fact.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They were all a lot older than me.
Do you read a lot?
Fair amount, yeah, as much as I can.
Again, any particular tastes?
Well, very varied again. I like, I've read some of Huxley's books.
Aldous Huxley?
Yeah.
Yes.
And have you ever read any of Salinger's?
Yes.
I like
The Catcher in the Rye?
Yeah, oh, well, that's my favorite book. Catcher in the Rye, Salinger. And I'm going to start on Hemingway and Steinbeck now.
Now, again, most of what we know about you is from reading the papers. It's said that you've suffered from bad health from time to time, that you've suffered from your nerves, that you've consulted psychiatrists, that you feel particularly nervous before shows and all the rest of it. How much of this is true?
Most of it is true, only exaggerated.
Well, what about the psychiatrist? Is that exaggerated?
Once I went.
Why?
Because he told me why I went afterwards. You see, I didn't
Why did you think you went before he told you?
Because I thought I was dying. I was so, felt so mentally sick and tired. So I went along, and he said that I was overworking. But this was a long while ago. This was over 2 years ago.
This was before you really hit the jackpot, before you were working anything like as hard as you are now.
Oh, yeah, a long while ago.
Now, since you've had this great success, has all this problem become better, or has it tended to be even more difficult?
Well, I found that success has breeded confidence for me, so I don't suffer so much now.
Do you like show business people, or do you still look back to a different world that you came from before you got this great success?
Well, I live a very personal life, away from show business.
When you're not on tour now, where do you live?
I live at home with my parents.
With your parents still?
And with my friends.
Yes.
That I had before show business.
Well, now that, there's another young man in your life, of course, who isn't Adam Faith at all, Terry Nelhams.
Yeah.
Now, tell me a bit about Terry Nelhams, because I suspect he's a bit different, perhaps, from Adam Faith. How much are you with your family nowadays?
Very little now. I shall see them tonight. Well, in fact, I shall see them for the next 10 weeks, because I'm working in Wimbledon in pantomime, and that's very near for me. I shall live at home.
That means you'll sleep at home. You'll sleep at home tonight?
Yeah.
When did you last see your parents?
A week ago. I came home for one night from a tour to go to a spastics ball, and I saw them that night.
Dressed in the right clothes for the spastics ball?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Now, when you go home tonight, and tomorrow morning you'll wake up and you'll go outside the house, and the local people in your own street, the flat,
yeah.
The local people in your own street will see you, Will you be mobbed by fans then, or do they accept you in your own home?
They accept me very much. I live on an estate of council flats, and having lived there for so long, I haven't found any difference amongst them at all.
You're still Terry Nelhams to them?
Completely, yeah.
Yeah. Do you find any difference, any friction between your present life and your family when you go home? I mean, for instance, do you keep different hours from what they do? Just, for example, do your parents go to bed early and you stay up half the night playing music, for instance, and that kind of thing?
Well, it's a little difficult in a small flat to play music because it keeps them awake.
Well, that's just exactly what I'm asking you.
Yeah, but I seldom sit up at home because when I'm at home in Acton, I spend time with my friends and I go to their place to play music. So it doesn't interfere with my family.
Do they take an interest in your career?
Oh, all the time.
They follow you and they know exactly where you are and what you're doing?
Well, they'd be sitting home tonight watching this with a dry mouth.
Is your father a trade unionist?
No, he works for a coach company. And I don't believe they have a union there.
Have you ever been a member of a union yourself?
Well, I am a member of a union. I'm a member of the ACTT.
The cine technicians. And you've kept your card alive.
Yeah.
Do you ever think you'll ever go back to it?
Well, you never know when you need it, do you? You see, I don't know.
Tell me, when did you first discover, presumably as quite a kid, that you'd got this talent? Or were you grown up?
I was 16.
How did you discover it?
Well, I was a messenger boy for a film company for a while. Then I left, and there were six messenger boys. Then I left the company and went to a television company to be an assistant editor.
A film editor?
Yeah, film editor.
Yeah.
And the rest of the boys started a skiffle group, and they didn't have a singer. And so they asked me if I would come in the skiffle group and sing.
And your first professional engagement, was that 6.5 special?
Well, the very, very first professional engagement was at a boys' club in Wandsworth. I think we got 15 shillings. And that was with the skiffle group. And
6.5 special was the first time you got 2 guineas, anyway.
Well, yes, something like that.
Were you a success straight off, or I think you weren't. You had 2 goes at this, didn't you?
Yeah, I spent a couple of months in show business. When I went on 6.5 special, I made 2 records, and I did some stage shows, and they were all deadly failures. So I got disheartened and went back to work. And then, about a year later, a good friend of mine, John Barry, rang me up at the film studios and said he was on a new BBC program called Drumbeat, and they were looking for new faces on the show, and would I go along for an audition? So he fixed an audition for me with this producer, Stuart Morris, and I went along and Stuart gave me the show. And
that was your break?
That's when it first started.
Do you remember when you got that second offer? I mean, were you very excited about it? Do you think this time I'm going to be a star? Or did you ask what's the money going to be? Or what was in your mind?
Mostly, I wanted a car, you see. And when I was in the film studios, I decided to devote myself to making a career. And I became passionately interested in it. And I worked all hours, Saturday and Sunday. And before I knew it, I had a small savings account. I think it was about 30 or 40 pounds. And that decided me to save the rest to put a deposit on a car. So when I got this chance to go on Drumbeat, I kept my job for 3 weeks. And because the contracts were optional, of 3 weeks, 9 weeks, and then another 13, whatever it was. So I decided to go on. If it wasn't a success, I'd made money off the 3 shows, I could buy a car, put a deposit down. But after 3, I got signed up for some more, so I gave up the job.
Yes. In other words, this great opportunity was the first impact was bankroll. It was a bit of a motor car and so on. Is it still that? I mean, have you got a mission now, or are you still in this for the dough?
Well, now, at first I was in it very much for the money. But that soon left me because there's so much excitement and thrill connected with show business that after a while the money doesn't seem so important.
Especially when you've got an awful lot of it, of course.
Well, the more you have, the less important it becomes.
Yes.
If you're silly, of course. But I save as much as I can now, just in case.
Yes. Do you worry about the future a lot?
I don't worry too much about the future. I have a little bit of money now.
Are you satisfied with the success you've had, or have you got a lot of ambitions that the world doesn't know about?
Well, I want to become a better performer on stage. I want to try and make better records. Really, I just want to become a better performer.
Yes, but do you really think you're going to spend your life singing, or are you going to develop into an actor or do something quite different?
Well, I hope to sing for the rest of my life, but I want to spend much more time trying to develop as an actor.
Any notions of having any particular musical training, or do you reckon you'll just allow yourself to develop as it comes?
Well, I think for a few years I'll just allow it to come, because I don't know what makes people buy my records. I mean, maybe just the naturalness of the voice coming over. And if I take musical instruction, it might destroy that. And I'd hate that to happen at this stage.
Now, the image of you which is put across, I don't know whether it's your image or whether it's publicity people, but you're quite different from most of the other pop singers. I've been consulting some teenage friends of mine, and they tell me that you're cool, that you're moody, that you're mean, you're offbeat, and you're sexually attractive. Now, this is a long list of adjectives.
It certainly is.
Is this the sort of image that you and your advisors want to create? It is different from the other pop singers, I think.
Yeah. It's very difficult to say here because I don't have a press agent at all. And I always take interviews myself. And when I first started in show business, I met Evelyn Taylor, my manager. And when I first saw her, I dressed casually with jeans and a leather jacket. So I think that's the impression she got of me. And the press took it up, because that's when I'm at rehearsal, that's how I dress. And the press, I've always found that when I'm being interviewed, that they take the most outstanding characteristic, whether it's good or bad, or whether it's true or false. They just take that
and blow it up.
And that is the character that they build up. And another pressman read the cuttings that the first pressman have built up, and then they go along to the interview and they've already got it sized up.
What's the most valuable lesson you've learned in this year that you've had?
Well, as a person or as an entertainer?
No, as a person.
Well, I've become more tolerant to advice over this past year, because I came into show business knowing completely nothing, and I only know just a little bit more now. And you need people to tell you where you're going wrong. You must have them to tell you. And I think I've relied on people to help me, and it's overflowed into my personal life.
Now, you see, yes, and looking at you from outside, probably millions of teenagers would copy you, whatever you did. If you shaved all your hair off like Yul Brynner, a million young men would do this tomorrow morning. Now, do you think that makes sense, that a young man of 20 should be the idol of so many millions?
Sense, I don't know. You see, I don't feel that they would shave their heads if I had a Yul Brynner haircut. I don't think that if I put my head in the gas oven, they wouldn't do it. See, I don't think that they would.
You think they're more independent than we give them credit for?
I think so, you see, because I meet teenagers all the time. When I'm working, I always meet them in the dressing room. And I found them completely independent. You see, this is another thing that the press have taken, because in a world with many, many millions of people and millions of teenagers, a few teenagers do things that get into the press, and immediately every single teenager in the country is put into the category.
Well, now let me then ask you as a last question. What's quite certain is that whether they copy you or not, you're very much admired by millions of teenagers. Now, if you could say it for yourself, what are the qualities that you would most like to be admired for?
Sincerity. In being an individual. I think all teenagers should strive to be individuals. And